This is Stag Stories, the show which tells Stags fans the stories of former players and staff from yesteryear through their eyes and words. Today's episode is part 2 of our conversation with former defender Martin Riley. You can find part 1 on our website now. Please note, this episode contains strong language and some stories which viewers and listeners may find offensive. This episode was filmed at the Capo Lounge on Tuesday the 4th of June. This is Stag Stories with Martin Riley, Part 2. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Stag's Stories. For you, it's been a week. For me, Nathan and Cam and Martin Riley, it's been practically about 5 minutes since we last stopped talking about the first part of Martin's journey with the Stags. If you want to relive it, if you've missed it, you can catch it on our website and, of course, on all good podcast apps as well. So get yourself on there and catch up with part 1 of Stag Stories with Martin Riley, because some of what we're going to talk about in part 2 probably won't make sense if you've not watched part 1. Nathan, it was an absolutely interesting insight, wasn't it, into Martin's first spell with us. Are you eagerly anticipating what he's going to say about his second? Personally, I want to know which player out of the Football League squad is going to be sparking up fags on the bus and following in Gary Roberts' footsteps.
Oh, and how many fist fights have been as well. We've had a few of those stories, more than I expected. But no, it was a very interesting insight, you know, to the conference days, but we fast forwarding a couple of years to more recent times, and obviously when we're back in the league, so it'd be interesting to see what other stories will come forward.
Well, it's time to jump through time now. The last time we left it, the Stags had just been beaten at home to York in the playoff semi-final second leg. You said last time, Martin, that you hadn't spoken about contracts and things like that. Were you wanting to stay? What were your options after? What were you thinking after the defeat?
No, I was wanting to stay. I was, yeah. Looking back now, there was definitely a lot of things that I did wrong with the way that I left things standing a little bit with Cox at the end of that season. But I also think that you can say the same for him. I don't think we both handled things very well. And at the end it came down to me leaving and going to Wrexham.
You had a great season at Wrexham, Wembley twice, won the FA Trophy on penalties. End of that season comes, and all of a sudden the transfer window's open and Mansfield Town are announcing a new sign, and lo and behold, it's you! You're back. What brings you back?
Very strange, isn't it, really, I suppose. Like I say, it ended very strangely with me and Coxie at the end of that season. It was strange. The first year I was there, like I mentioned in the previous episode, it was Mickey that brought me in, and although obviously Coxie would have signed it off and whatever, it always felt like I was like Mickey's kind of player. I never really had I had more of a relationship with Mickey than I did with Coxie, and I think that obviously went a lot of the way to why we parted ways at that season. But
because Mickey left as well at the end of that. He ended up going back into first team management elsewhere. Yeah. And then Muzz stepped up to the assistant role.
Well, it was. I think it was Christmas that year, and Coxie got married. He got married around that time, and I just texted him out of the blue, and I just said, congratulations, getting married, etc. Just one of those messages. And he messaged me back saying, how are you? And,
it's a nice thing to do from your perspective, because I think a lot of times when footballers leave managers, if they've not had the most friendliest of relationships, they can just sort of pass it by.
It wasn't that me and Coxie ever had a bad relationship at all. It was just that we didn't have much of a relationship. And then from that moment, you know, we kind of kept in touch and we spoke and we kept in touch to the end of that year. And if we'd have got promoted that year with Wrexham, which we should have done, you know, that was heartbreaking, losing in the final after having such a good season. And we were the better team on the day at Wembley and stuff. But it would have been extremely difficult to leave Wrexham that year. But the fact that, you know, it was going back into the league for myself was massive for me, and obviously joining Mansfield again, which I had such a good year about 2 years before, and having so many friends in the town and a good relationship with the fans and everyone. It was too good to turn down.
And obviously a lot of the squad was sort of still together, because that was one thing that Coxie did, like to keep the core of that. Was that another big draw for you as well? Were you thinking in the back of your mind, we've got so far, it's brilliant to see that they're back in the Football League, we can probably go on to achieve more?
Yeah, I don't think if I had any suspicion that year would have been a struggle, then it would have made things a lot different for me. I mean, no one wants to go and join a team that's going to struggle. So yeah, although League Two was a massive draw, if I thought that it was going to be a relegation battle, then I probably wouldn't have come back, to be honest.
It's an interesting one, that, because on paper, with every single season since we've been back in the Football League, we've always finished higher than where we were. But that first season back in the Football League, everybody did expect us to struggle, but actually we had a relatively decent season.
We did, yeah. I think we had a real bad spell, didn't we? Apart from the bad spell that we had, it was around Christmas time or January.
We tended to have under Coxie bad spells at Christmas, but because of the previous 2 seasons where it had always got better in January, that sort of picked up a little bit, and he was given that patience.
Well, I think we finished joint 8th or joint 9th that year.
Yeah.
Which for obviously a newly promoted team was a massive achievement. I even think there was talks about a playoff run at one point, which might have been a bit far-fetched, but yeah, no, I think to be honest, that first season back in the league was a massive positive for everyone.
Be honest, when you were speaking to Coxie and talking about coming back, did you ask him, A, where are we going for pre-season? Are we going to Skeggy and are we having a punch-up? We used to out to get the blokes.
We went to
Malta that year.
Yeah.
That must be a bit of... You must have been thinking, bloody hell, I'm in here 2 years. We're going to Skeggy for a pre-season tour, now we're in Malta.
We went from Skeggy to Malta, yeah. That was a good trip as well.
No comparison.
Yeah. What is it?
My biggest regret of that Malta trip was not getting on the chairman's yacht for the last day. I think we were... so we had a good little trip, to be fair. We played a team out there and worked hard. We had a few real good days training, and we had a night out on the
shock
team bonding. Team bonding, it's called. And we went out to obviously went into the clubs and stuff, and the chairman was taking the directors and the managers and I think a few players out on the yacht the next day. So a few of the boys, I definitely remember Steve over there, Demps was there, I think they stayed up all night just to get on the chairman's yacht the next day. I ended up going back to my hotel room, lagging and falling asleep, and I missed out on the boat trip, so I was a bit devastated about that. But yeah, that was a good trip away as well. I don't think there was any fights. Out on that trip, so...
Mate, you were out there. Was there any trouble out in Malta?
It wasn't that year I was out. It was the second time I was out, unfortunately. I had to make sure I was on that yacht as well, to be fair.
It must have been a great experience.
The Chairman's Hill was one of the worst experiences. The chairman found this hill up in Malta. Obviously, he knew the area quite well, and he had us running up and down that for a day. I think it was not very nice.
It is really hilly. I know when I went, they went out for pre-season.
Would have been
a couple of years ago. It was with Steve Evans, so it wasn't even that long ago. 2 seasons ago. I remember. I can't remember. I called it Viennetta, but whatever it's called.
Oh, what's it called now?
It's something, isn't it? But yeah, I called it Viennetta anyway. But I know that's really, really hilly over there, so I can sort of imagine what what it was like. But it must be a good thing going on, because obviously some clubs do it, and some don't. Some don't. Some just stay in the country. So it must be, for you. Do you think it makes a big difference going abroad, or does it not really matter?
It's a nice change of scenery, definitely. Like I said, the main priority is you get some good warm weather training in, and you get to bond with the lads. All the lads are, instead of just coming into the training ground every day and training and then getting off home, you're literally spending 2, 3, 4 days in each other's company, bonding and getting used to each other and making friendships and stuff like that. So it's definitely worthwhile.
Who in that dressing room would have tried to sail the chairman's yacht? Who would have tried to take over and
probably
be
me.
king of the seas?
Probably me if I was on it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely me. Steve-O probably would have tried to have a go as well. Bumped into Steve-O actually in the on the plane to Albufeira about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He was on a stag do and I was going out there with my mates. I bumped into him on the plane, so we had a good catch up then. Yeah. We were both drinking as well.
He always seemed like a character, Lee Stevenson.
Yeah. Oh, he mentioned his goal at Fratton Park a few times. Yeah. Definitely. Telling my mates about that quite a lot.
It was an interesting season that season. Obviously, first year back in the Football League, none of us really knew what to expect and got through it. And then the next season comes, and this is where it changed a little bit. It's obviously your third season now with us. You had number 6 for the first 2 seasons, and I think you changed to number 3.
Yeah.
What happened there? Because all these social media and stuff, it's always Life of Riley 6. Go and follow it if you're not.
Yeah. Nice plug there.
Cheers, mate.
I haven't got a clue, to be honest. I couldn't tell you.
Because when you look at the numbers, some people would like. Do you play Football Manager? I'm Football Manager.
I did when I was young, not anymore.
On Football Manager now, if they want to sponsor us, by the way, get in. They have like a social feed now, so it sort of predicts what fans would say on social media. And whenever you put your squad numbers out, it always says like such and such number 3 or such and such number 6. Surely he's more of a number 10. And we looked at yours and sort of 3, and everyone's going, is he playing left back?
Yeah. It's a strange one. I didn't particularly mind having number 3 at all. Like you say, I was always number 6, but because I played a lot of that season on the left of a back 3, I suppose it kind of fitted in a little bit. But yeah, I mean 6 was always my number, but I can't even remember who had 6 that year. I suppose it's just one of those things.
But you know what? It will come to me later.
Taff had it maybe.
Yeah, possibly. It will come to me. Definitely come to me later on. There were certainly some, even though they weren't seasons of real success in terms of playoffs or championships or anything like that. There were certainly key games in there which were really great ones. The best one for us was probably, I don't think it's one you played in, but you would have certainly watched it, and from a fan's perspective, Chesterfield away, we won 1-0. Calvin Andrew writes himself into the legends book.
Was that first year or second year?
First year.
First year. I think I was suspended, or I can't remember if I was injured or suspended for that one, but I was definitely there and I was definitely watching it, and I was absolutely gutted that I missed out on that one, because obviously as Stags fans I'm sure that lives long in the memory. But yeah, just what a result. To be honest, I think we'll all be honest and say we got battered for most of that game.
Yeah, we did. It was definitely a sore.
Battered for most of that game, but we held out, and Calvin obviously ended up scoring a set piece, didn't he? And I've just got a picture of Jammer. Just remember Jammer clapping all the away fans at the end. I think there was a video of Jammer, and it was just absolute that away
giving it all the arms and all
absolutely
that.
Absolutely rocking, yeah. Jammer loves to get involved in it.
I think that's still his Twitter.
Yeah, probably is. Yeah.
It's brilliant, and I think that was the day that he sort of came into fans' minds a little bit more, because he was a new signing that year as well. And it's weird to think that those little moments actually fans remember them more sometimes than scoring a goal or playing particularly well.
Definitely.
It's crazy. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the games and stuff in a second, because by the time that you left for the second time, Adam Murray was manager. We'll talk about that in a little while, but we always ask people to come on and share some of their stories. You told us one earlier in the first episode about the Skegness punch-up. I asked you to give me some headlines earlier, and you said Tunnel of Death. Talk to me about the Tunnel of Death.
I've got a story about the Tunnel of Death. I've also got a story about one of Steve-O's quizzes, where Ollie Palmer came out with one of the stupidest shouts I've ever heard in my life. Which one do you want? Which one?
We'll go Tunnel of Death first, and I'll write quiz down so we don't skip over.
Tunnel of Death. Okay, so I can't remember if it was first year. I think it was first year. So we used to obviously train up at the pitches at the ground. Used to get changed in the ground. The first team used to get changed in the home dressing room, and the youth team used to get trained up in the away dressing room.
They now switched over as well. The
right.
away is now the home, and
right, okay.
The home one would have the massive beam in, wouldn't it? And
yeah.
the booths.
Yeah.
Yeah, they now have changed over.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, sorry, Karen.
Yeah. So after every training every day, we used to go up and get our food in the dining room, up in the main stand. And so there's an unwritten rule in football that the first team pros eat first, and then the youth team eat second. So we come up for training, after training for our dinner one time, and all the kids have been at the food. So we were like sitting there thinking, oh, little bastards, they've been eating the food here without permission, and nowhere to be seen. So we were like, okay, fair enough. So we had a little word with them, told them, you've got to wait for the first team to eat first before you can have your food. So it's happened again. So the lads have obviously had another word with them. Like, lads, listen, like you let the first team eat before you have your food. It's just the way it is. It's been happening for centuries. It's just the way it goes. So it's happened one more time. So we're thinking, right, the young lads need teaching a bit of a lesson here. So we all got together, and we came up with a Tunnel of Death. So obviously the youth team had to get changed in the away dressing room, which was right at the bottom of the corridor. We used to get changed at the home dressing room. So one day they were all in their dressing room getting changed. All of the first team had lined up, Tunnel of Death, outside the dressing room. From there to the end of the tunnel, it was anything goes. So punches, kicks, trips. One of the lads had one of his razors. He was shaving chunks out of their hair. The lads were getting soap out of the toilets, rubbing it, throwing it in their faces. We had JJ at the bottom of the tunnel with the hose. So when they made it out of the tunnel, they had JJ standing there hosing them down with cold water. So
because they know what was waiting. They
knew what was coming. Yeah. Because I was banging on the door saying, "Right, you get out here now, you little shits. You're having it. You eat our food one more time before you're told to. You're having it." So there's about 20 of them in there. I'm banging down the door, like, "Get out here, you little shits. You're having it." And then none of them are moving.
Who goes in and grabs them out?
They're all sitting there, absolutely shitting themselves. You've got the lads banging down the doors, going, "Oi, get out here!" So eventually, we've like dragged them out.
Who's gone in and dragged them out?
I think I went in there and dragged them out. Me and Suts dragged them out. I can remember someone had a broom as well. He was hitting them with broom, like tripping them up.
There's a whole new meaning to the word sweep. They're all sweeper now. If it was Mazza, it would have been genius because it's sweeper keeper anyway.
So anyway, we've got them out. So they're all piling out one by one. They're filing out. They're getting digged, jabbed in the rib. Like I say, someone had a shaver, was taking chunks out of their hair. There was soap getting rubbed in their eyes and everything. So one by one, they're all coming out. Anyway, fair play to them. They all did it. What we found out later that afternoon, there was 2 trialists in the room. It was their first day. It was the first day. Bless them, they've gone home to their parents with chunks out of their hair and soap in their eyes, and the parents have had to ask them, so how was your first day then?
Eventful. That's crazy. Who was the youth team manager? Who was in charge? Was it not Coops and Mill?
It quite possibly was, yeah, but we obviously passed it with them first.
Yeah.
And they'd obviously passed it off. But
so just for any parents that are listening or watching that are thinking about putting complaints in, it was all cleared and all okay. They knew what was coming. It wasn't bullying.
Assessment done.
Yeah, they knew what was coming.
Yeah, no, fair play to all the young lads as well. They took it, but I mean that stuff used to go.
Did any of them give it back?
Yeah, I think a few of them tried to give it back. Yeah.
Tried as a
I
kid.
mean,
Yeah.
this stuff was regular when I was a youth team. I don't think it happens much now, but.
I guess it's part of the education of football, isn't it? Because as you say, it's etiquette in some ways. You are the first team, therefore you get priority over the food, you get the priority over the dressing room, the training pitches, and when you're a youth team player, you're expected to do the jobs, to sweep up, to clean the dressing rooms, to do the boots, and wait your turn, and earn your stripes, and your time will come. And if that's not happening, then I guess something has to be done about it.
Well, I had a big lesson when I was 18, 19, when my first trip away with the Wolves first team. We went to Monte Castillo in Spain, and I was a young chirpy little bastard coming up from the youth team, and we thought one day we're going to play a little trick on some of the first team pros. There was Paul Ince, some big hitters in football, and you know, Jolien Lescott was there, Colin Cameron, Alex Ray, Mark Clyde. That's some serious like old school pros, and we thought it'd be funny to sneak on the balconies and while they were drying all their swim shorts on the balconies, we thought we'd change them all over, like swap them all over, and we just thought we were having a laugh. And when the first team was found out, they were absolutely fuming. We got battered. I had chunks. I had my hair shaved off, my eyebrows taken off with a razor. I was chased through the hotel by him. So I do remember that season, 18, 19 years old, my first year as a professional footballer for Wolves. My first team photograph was with no hair and no eyebrows. I looked like I'd just come off a hospital ward.
When you're a player, you always get those dressing room antics. Who was the worst for dishing them out? We've had them all. The best one I think we've ever had, Nath, was when Ian Bowling was here last series and was talking about the surgeon sponge. Long story short, you're basically in hospital, and the surgeon decided to have a bit of a laugh and said that he needed to take a skin graft, and he basically said that he took it off his cock and he got a sponge with some like fake blood in it and dabbed it all around, and he's looked down and seen all the blood and thought, fuck, you know. What was the worst sort of moment you had? Who was the worst for dishing it out?
I don't know, you know.
Because from what you've said, to me it might be you that's the one that's dishing it out.
It might have been, yeah, to be fair. I was a bit of a joker back in the day, a bit of a clown. I don't think that's probably served me too well looking back in the days, but yeah, no, it was probably me. Yeah, I was probably always the dressing room joker, if you like. Who would you? I'll give you two scenarios. The one person you always knew you could play a trick on first. Who, your time at the Stags, who would you go? He's having it. Oh, I don't know. Jamie Maguire used to get a lot of stick, to be fair. He could take it as well though. But yeah, Jamie used to get a lot. And then the opposite way around. Who would you think? I'm not going anywhere near. I mean, you'd probably from looks wise and his stature, you'd probably say Big X, but having known as a gentle giant, you probably would have gone for it. Yeah, maybe some of the first teamers like Muzz and that, probably for their experience and the old, you know, the senior boys. Yeah. You leave them alone purely on respect. Yeah. The other headline you gave us was about Steve-O's quiz. We're talking about the other Steve-O now. So we're talking about Media Steve-O. Yeah. Media Steve-O, top man Media Steve-O as well. So he used to... he loves a quiz. He loves a quiz. Well, he came to my wedding last year and he had the whole wedding party eating out of the palm of his hand. Oh, I can imagine. Him at about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. He was unbelievable. So he used to do a quiz for our away trips every Friday. and I got stuck in a group with Ollie Palmer and Taff. Bless Ollie and Taff, like not the sharpest tools in the book, are they? But so I always remember one of the questions was in what year? I say again, in what year did the Titanic sink? And I actually knew the answer to the question, and it was 1912.
I'm going to test Cam with what he said. But
but Ollie Palmer's jumped up and he's gone, whoa. He said, this could be a trick question. He said, because it could have sank in one year but hit the bottom in another. and me and the lads were just looking at each other like, where do we get this kid from? Yeah, Ollie Palmer got nicknamed Trigger, to be fair, because he wasn't the brightest.
Oh, fantastic stuff, it's brilliant. We'll touch more on the playing side in a little bit, but because we've been talking about a quiz, yes, Cam's back on. Guess what's back for Stag Stories? Guess what feature? Yes, it is back.
Cool.
Nathan, you're looking forward to this, aren't you? You know you love a Craig quiz.
Yep, should be good.
It's absolutely brilliant. So
Nathan doesn't look forward to these.
Especially when I'm not in the hot seat anyway.
Yeah, I think you enjoy it more when you're not playing.
Yeah. It's great when you can laugh at others, but it's not great when you're the one being laughed at.
Probably not so great for Martin now, who's slowly realising that he's going to take part in the quiz. He wasn't told this at all before he came.
I do like a quiz, to be fair.
This one is very special because this one is all about you. Every single...
Should be easy then.
Well, you would think. What you like with anagrams?
Not very good.
Shot it already. Every single episode that we do of this, we always do a quiz about that person's time at the Stags. It's 10 questions against the clock. I'll run through the rules in a second. We've had Ian Bowling, we've had Bobby Assel, we've had John Delaye, we've had Stuart Watkis, Mick Boulding, and of course Richie Barker on Legends Live, and Paul Cox, your ex-gaffer, and Adam Murray, your ex-teammate and ex-gaffer as well. Where do you think they are, Muzz and Coxie, knowing them? Where do you think they are on the leaderboard? You think they're going to be towards the top, or do you think they're going to be languishing towards the relegation
top,
zone?
I reckon.
You're going
towards
top?
The top, yeah.
You're going top. Well, you're wrong. So it's the bottom. I'll run through for those of you who have missed it in Series 1, the current leaderboard. John Delaye is leading the way at the moment with 9 correct in 1 minute 43. Mick Boulding 8 in 1:38. Richie Barker 7 in 1:37. Ian Bowling 7 in 1:39. Stuart Watkis 6 in 1:42. Bobby Hassel 6 in 1:49. Adam Murray 6 in 1:52. And by far the funniest part of Legends Live was Paul Cox with 5 correct in 2 minutes 42. I think he wanted to go on Google at some point and try and find out some of the answers. So we'll tell you all the rules and everything. 10 questions, as I say, against the clock. Contestants are looking to get the most correct answers in the quickest time. If you get an answer wrong, it's plus 5 seconds to your total time. If you pass, it's plus 10. So worth a go, even if you don't know. Catchphrase, kids. The time will start after I've asked the first question.
Come on in.
I'm ready for this one. I'm just going to move slightly because I'm conscious that I've got the questions here.
I can see it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to just move around a little bit so you can't see the answers and try and mark them off. But there you go. So, Cam, are you going to got the timer ready? The timer will start after I've asked the first question. You okay on the rules, yeah? Fantastic. Okay then, let's take part in the quiz. Martin Riley, on your first debut against Bath City, who was your central defensive partner? Start the clock.
That friendly?
Your first debut. First season, conference season. Worth a go even if you don't know. Can pass for plus 10 seconds.
John Thompson.
You returned after a spell at Wrexham with the Stags now back in the Football League, but against who did you make your Football League debut for the Stags?
Was it Northampton?
The Stags reached the playoffs during your first spell. You contributed with 1 goal, but against who?
Rochdale.
Hexagon Doghouse. Hexagon Doghouse is an anagram of which of your former teammates? Hexagon Doghouse.
Exodus.
Whose 38th minute goal, his only for the club, made him a cult hero as the Stags beat Chesterfield in September 2013.
Calvin Andrews.
I kept clean sheets, wore pink shirts and liked to score from my own box live on TV. Who am I?
Alan Marriott.
You and the Big X both had 2 separate spells under Paul Cox, but who played more games in total, you or X?
Me.
Your final game at Accrington Stanley saw you play injured and not last the full 90, but who replaced you in the 73rd minute making his Stags debut?
Was it Corbin Shire?
Which of your former teammates is now the Stags manager?
John Dempster.
And the final game of your first spell ended in a playoff semi-final defeat against York City, but who got sent off in extra time?
Richie Sutton.
Stop the clock.
Started off bad, that didn't it?
Yeah, it got progressively better, and there will be one debatable talking point which we're going to go over in a second. Cam, can I have the time without the penalties, please?
1 minute 39.
1 minute 39 without the penalties, plus 15 seconds, please.
1 minute 55.
1 minute 55.
Quicker at maths than you are.
Well, that's it. That's why I asked you. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in 1 minute 55. Let's run through those answers. It's good. It's up there. It gets you up there. It gets you into 1 minute 55. Gets you into 3rd place actually. So that's not too bad. I don't think anyone's going to beat John Delighty because that was rapid. He was just on it. He knew everything. It was unreal. On your
Does it make a difference? It's 54, just in case it makes
Same thing.
What?
It was 1 minute 54, not 55. Yeah.
Does it make a difference? Probably might do actually.
So, yeah.
No, it doesn't. No.
Okay. Tried to get you a bit higher.
I know.
Sorry.
That's me not listening properly. First 3 questions you got wrong. So let's look at those. On your first debut against Bath City, who was your central defensive partner? You said
John Thompson.
it was Tom Naylor.
Right.
It wasn't there for very long. Ended up going to Derby quite early on, didn't he? You returned after a spell at Wrexham with the Stags, now back in the Football League. But against who did you make your Football League debut for the Stags? You said Northampton. It was Exeter.
Yeah. Northampton was the first game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I feel bad for this one, but you didn't listen to the question. The Stags reached the playoffs during your first spell. You contributed with 1 goal, but against who? Alfreton. Yeah, so I can't give it you because you did get it right. I can't give you that one, I'm afraid. Got to be stringent on the rules. I've learnt from the master.
No problem.
So I thought that was a good effort. Nathan, how much would you have got out of that if you were?
I'd have done the same. I'd have got off to a very bad start. I didn't have a clue for the first couple. For the ones for the end, I knew, but probably because we spoke about them in the first 2 in this episode and the last episode.
Well, that's what we try and do. I think the more. I think players need to look into this a little bit more. They sort of know how it goes. We tend to touch over subjects which we're going to come up in the quiz, but some do, some don't. Cam, how do you think you'd have got on in that?
Alright.
Because the thing is, with you, we do take the mick out of you quite a lot because you're the youngest of the group. A lot of the players we had in the last series, Cam can't remember because he wasn't even a thought in his dad's trousers at that point. But I think you're probably, other than JD and Muzz and Coxie, you're probably the only player that Cam would have watched. Is that fair? That's about right, isn't it?
Richie Barker was coming to the end of his time, and so was Mick Boulding. So I roughly remember them, but
so you would have struggled on their questions, but the ones for Martin you should have got. But I don't think that's a bad effort whatsoever. 7 in 154.
I'm happy with that.
You've said a lot of stories about Richie Sutton in episodes. Is there any which spring to mind? Because I think we all have a list of guests that we'd like to get on the show, and Suts for me is one of them. So I'm gonna have to try and get him on. Maybe I have to give him a bit of a nudge and say get on and
no, I'll definitely do that. I spoke to him the other day actually, because obviously I played with him at Tranmere as well. No, he's a funny kid, to be fair. You've put me on the spot there. I can't think of anything that springs to mind.
Let's talk about, before we talk about on the pitch and things that way, one last story from you. You're quite active on Twitter and social media. Political views are often quite on there. Tell us this story about when you're getting abused, not for your footballing ability, but for your political escapades. What's going on there?
Yeah, like you say, I'm very vocal on Twitter, especially when it comes to political views and stuff. I'm massively into my politics, to be fair.
We're going to start talking Brexit here, or what am I to go?
Yeah, so I remember airing a few views on Twitter about my decisions to vote for the Conservatives in would it have been 2000? It was one of the general elections. So it would have been 2015?
2016?
2016?
No, it can't. No,
Was it when Gordon Brown came out of power and David Cameron went in?
That was 2000. I can't remember anyway.
We've had plenty, haven't we?
Well, if you say that, if you can remember the team that we played against, we might know.
It was Accrington at the end, when I got injured.
Yeah, so that would have been Football League then. So that would have been 2015.
So there was general election 2015. That's right. Yeah. So the general election 2015.
Say anything about politics, I won't know. Say football season, straight on it.
Yeah, so I ended up viewing a few political opinions about voting for the Conservatives. Obviously, probably not the brightest move. So playing for a working class Labour town like Mansfield.
It's not now.
Yeah,
it's not now. Exactly. I do remember
predicting the future.
I remember speaking to the new MP Ben Bradley actually, and told him that story. But yeah, this was obviously going back to 2015, and yeah, I remember my own fans singing "You Tory Tory wanker" at me during that game, which was quite funny. Obviously, it took it all in good humour.
Was that a nice change though? Because most of the time, fans were singing "Martin Riley, your missus is fit."
yeah. That was my song, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I thought she was coming tonight, but
yeah, well,
come for now.
Oh yeah.
Now my wife as well. So.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a nice song, to be fair. I think she quite enjoyed that as well.
I think that came about because, especially in the Football League days, Media Steve liked to do a thing which we loved and still love to this day, called Stag Mates.
Yeah.
And always at the end it was who's got the fittest wife or girlfriend, and every single player went, Riles.
Either Riley or Ollie Palmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember the Stag Mates as well. That was good times. Yeah, no, it was all good times. I had a great rapport with the Mansfield fans. Like I say, I got loads of friends around the town, still have, which I keep in touch with. Although there was probably a bit of truth in the chants, the political chants and stuff at the end.
And the other one as well, to be fair.
And the other one as well, yeah. It's all good fun. It's all good fun. Like I say, I had a great relationship with the fans, and they are a great set, great bunch, and I genuinely wish them all the best and wish the club all the best.
Wrapping things back up to on the pitch, it's now your second season in the Football League with the Stags. Gets to sort of early November time, we're not in the greatest of form, we're struggling a little bit, and Paul Cox comes to the end of his tenure. What can you remember about those days? Because for us as fans, we felt it coming, but it was also a very disappointing time because you've got a manager who's basically transformed the club.
Yeah. I can't. I do obviously remember we were in a bad spell. I can't remember what his last game was, or what I was feeling, but I do remember we were in a bad spell, and it's the nature of the sport we're in, isn't it? It's a results industry, and obviously the results weren't going for us at the time. So, although it's sad, especially for what he's done for the club, that is football.
Was it a surprise to see Adam Murray given the job? He's been assistant and captain and club legend as well.
Yeah, possibly a little bit for me as a player. Obviously, looking from the outside, it probably wasn't. But yeah, maybe a little bit of a surprise. But looking back on Muzz's abilities and stuff, then not really, no.
Well, how did you rate him as a manager? Because it was a difficult one for us as fans, weren't it, Nath? Because you've got a captain, a player who'd been fantastic, and then gone into the youth team and done a little bit with them and progressed. It's almost a similar situation with Dance, but How did you find him as a manager? Because it's always interesting when you get a player who's one of the lads one day and then all of a sudden the next day it's Gaffer.
Yeah, very, very good, very good. I bought into everything that he tried to do initially. Obviously, new manager coming in, wanted to change a lot of things up. It was great. Like I say, really good. Fresh ideas, a lot of modern twists, and as far as coaching is concerned, he was top drawer. We had a couple of spats, which is usual in that 6 months, but yeah, purely on a managerial and coaching point of view, he was great.
Is that what led you to move on, or was it just a case of other opportunities?
No, it was. I was absolutely gutted when I left that year. I wanted to stay. It was a difficult season. Obviously, the budget was cut massively that year, and it was a real grind that year to obviously keep. We nearly got dragged into a relegation battle that year, and it was probably one of my toughest in football, to be honest. Just for sheer effort, just sheer mental and physical effort, and I was gutted. I felt like I'd really given everything that season, which turned out to be a difficult year. I think I've heard that it was our lowest scoring season ever as Mansfield Town Football Club.
Bar for the relegation, it would have been, yeah.
Yeah. So as a defender, that year was really tough.
Was that also the season that we went without getting a penalty, or was that the year after?
Yeah, I think it was that year. Yeah.
It's been crazy. Imagine betting on that.
Yeah. So purely for those reasons, like for when Muzz turned around and said he wasn't going to offer me a new contract, it was massively disappointing.
We'll end on more of a positive note and a bit of a light-hearted note as well. In your entire spell at the Stags, 3 seasons in total, in the space of 4 seasons, effectively, if you could pick 3 players to go on a deserted island with, who would you pick and why? These are the questions people hate.
Well, I'm gonna have to go Greeny, because Greeny was my best mate at Mansfield. We're pretty much inseparable. So I'm gonna take Greeny. Who else? Probably I've got to go Jamie Maguire, because he virtually lived at my house for a couple of years.
Oh, we've heard some stories about your house. Cam, do you want to share?
You used to live up Berry Hill Park, didn't you?
Yeah.
You used to live next door to my sister.
I've
heard about the parties.
Well, I think there was a couple of end of season parties back there, yeah, at the end of the year, so it was all right.
Yeah, I'll say I've heard about it before. And she actually messaged me. She saw about this. It was like, you do remember I used to live next to her? I was like, yeah, I remember you telling me.
Ask him about the parties. Yeah, we did. I do remember at the end of one season, we ended up after the end of season awards, we all ended up back at my apartment, and we did have a note through from the neighbours in the morning saying we literally had to step over bodies on the hallway in the morning.
Yeah.
Who was the worst? Who would have been?
Oh, I can't remember. Obviously, we all. It's a long season, isn't it? We all let our hair down at the end of the season. But yeah. So I'll go Greeny, Jamie Maguire, and probably Richie Sutton as well, because like I say, I spent a long time with him as well.
You're in a lift.
Yeah.
It breaks down. There's a former member of the playing squad in there as well. Who would you hate to be stuck in a lift with?
God, that's a good question. It's a difficult one, that is. I'm not sure.
Is there anyone who you think not hate as in I hate this person, dislike this person, but maybe hate.
I feel like saying Richie Sutton again as well.
Get a lot of hammer, isn't it?
Some of his stories and that are just shocking. But he was also very good entertainment. It's a difficult one, that is. Yeah, I'm struggling.
It's always an interesting question. What about in terms of a player who would just absolutely do your head in and just wind you up, and you'd hate to be sort of stuck in that confined space with? Would it be Gary Roberts if you keep changing it?
Yeah, probably Gary Roberts. Yeah, because he'd probably be smoking it all the time. Yes, Gary. Maybe Lyndon as well, because Lyndon's just a little annoying little fly, isn't it? Him and Michael used to just buzz about the place, annoying people all the time. So maybe Lyndon.
Best moment?
There was a few. There was a few serious games that stuck out. Obviously, the Alfreton 6-3 was a massive game in that season. Beating Wrexham 2-0 in the first year when Maz scored that wonder goal. Rochdale the 3-0 when I scored at home. Also, I don't know why, but Muzz's, on a personal note, Muzz's first game at Plymouth, at home to Plymouth in that season. On a personal note, we beat them 1-0, and that was one of my best games probably. What about you?
I think for me it was in that squad. It would be the Fleetwood game because that's when it sort of kicked. But that Plymouth game was special because it seems like we'd come so far on this journey with these players, and then it had sort of gone wrong a little bit, and it started to turn it around. But also as well, I just think from a fan's perspective, and always like the laugh, it was always the fact that there was never really a negative. It was always such good banter. You'd always interact with fans on social media. When we do this, sometimes it's difficult for us to get players and to get people to want to come down and open up, but the fact that straight away I remember who you are, I'd love to come down, it'd be great. I think the way that you interacted with fans was great, and I always remember my girlfriend at the time always laughing and saying, I know who's going to be the model, it's always going to be it's always going to be Riles, probably Taff, and probably Paul Black.
I think they outdid me on that front, to be honest. But like I say, I did have a really, really good 3 years here. Obviously there was a lot of low points as well as high points, but because I was living in the town as well, and I had so many friends here, and like I said, I did interact with a lot of the fans and directors and stuff. It was really easy for me to settle in around here, and it was hard when I left as well, because I really wanted to stay. So it was difficult for me to leave, but you know that's football, and like we spoke about at the start of the episode, you know, it's such a funny industry to be involved in. It's like, it's difficult.
It's been really a really inciting episode, Nathan. There's so many things which have come out for me. What, as you reflect on the 2 episodes and the chat with Riles, what were you sort of look back and think, that's quite a funny story, and I didn't perhaps know
that? Not necessarily the funny story side. It's probably more hearing the insight of because you've been here twice, and it's been sort of such a key point in our history. Obviously, coming out of the Football League, then putting all the efforts into getting back in. I know obviously he wasn't here for the season that did go up, but it was a start of that journey. You know, when Cox came in, and obviously we missed out on that season before, but then you came back and helped us, you know, with that stability. And there was still, like you said, there was a lot of good times, but a lot of hard times, and sort of getting that insight into, you know, Coxie leaving and Murray coming in. It's sometimes, it's like you say, I think we'll never get as supporters a real insight into what it's like as players or staff, and you know, we don't get to see that side. So to be able to hear it from a player's point of view is it's, like I say, it opens your eyes into it in a different way.
It certainly does. That's the views of Nathan Edge. Cam Felton's been behind the desk and behind the camera. We'll cut to Cam so we can see him one last time. Give it a wave. What have you taken away from the last 2 episodes, other than having your theories confirmed about the wild parties, that they weren't just your sister moaning?
I'm not sure, to be honest. It's
have you been listening?
it's a weird thing, because it's like, obviously everyone that we've interviewed before has been I've either not seen or I've only partially seen. So hearing stories about football that I have actually watched, like whilst Martin was here, I'd missed maybe 5 or 6 games, if that. So hearing the stories behind those seasons is like, you get to see it behind the scenes stuff, and actually what goes off in the dressing room, and like stories like the youth team taking an absolute hand.
That's brilliant. I love that.
That's absolutely brilliant, but it's the sort of stuff you don't get to hear about, because you don't meet these sort of people. Obviously, like, you played for Alfreton more recently, still local, but you wouldn't live this way, so you wouldn't see them knocking around. It's like you see a few Stags players knocking around these days that live sort of Mansfield, and you can interact with them, but players that have been and gone, you don't get to talk to, you don't get to hear about what they remember about the time of being at the club.
Have you got a final message for Cam's sister, your old neighbour?
You apologise to her for me,
Oh, it's been fantastic. Well, this is, as I say, is the second episode of Stag Stories. If you missed the first one, go back on our website. It's all going to be on there. This is something which we're going to strive to try and continue to do over the next couple of weeks before the season starts once again. There will be a little bit more ad hoc, and not every one of them will be on video for a couple of reasons. The first one is logistics. Martin's been very kind to us today and travelled up from Birmingham, isn't it, where you're based? Not every person can commit to do that on a Tuesday night or whatever, which means if we do things by phone and by Skype and things like that, the pool of players we can actually reach is a little bit wider, and that means that us as a podcast can bring you better content. So that's something we want to do. We'll continue to try and strive to bring you more video episodes in the future as well. Will there be another Legends Live? I think there has to be. There has to be at some point. Stay tuned for details of more players to come, and stay tuned, of course, for more details on potential Legends Live and Series 3 of the Mansfield Matters podcast as well. I've been Craig Priest. Alongside me has been Nathan Edge. Cam Felton's been behind the camera and at the mixing desk as well. Simon Mercer's not been here, but I'm sure he'll be listening and sharing the stories and laughing with us in the group chat when we tell him all about tonight. But our guest for the first episode of Stag Stories has been Martin Riley. Martin, thanks very much for coming down, and we'll leave the final word, your final reflections on your time at the Stags with your good self.
Oh, you put me on the spot there.
So we do it every week, every episode.
I think I summed it up before, really. Just great times, 3 great years in the town as well as at the football club. So yeah, just some real good memories of the club itself and the people around it.
And your message for fans next season, obviously your ex-teammate, ex-central half partner, taking the reins, what do you predict the future to be?
Well, I wish him all the best. I'm sure he'll do an unbelievable job. He deserves it for the job he's done with the youth team and stuff like that. So I will be supporting him and the club 100%, and hopefully promotion beckons and you can get back to where you belong.
This episode was presented and produced by Craig Priest with the Mansfield Matters panel of Nathan Edge and Cam Felton. For more, visit our website at mtfcmatters.co.uk and stay tuned for more Stag Stories coming soon. This is the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield matters.